What is up, friend and fellow anti-netter? Scott Shepard here. I'm coming to you on a very, very freaking early morning here on a Wednesday at 10:26 anti-meridium. Yes, I'm actually driving to the office before 11 or 12 o'clock midday. And today what I want to talk to you about is a concept from a book that I have been AKDing, meaning analog knowledge developing, every single morning. And yesterday I only did like 10 minutes of analog knowledge dev, which was like honestly just perfect. It was enough. When I set my timer, I set my intention of like, okay, I'm going to extract as much value as I can out of 10 minutes. And the book I'm reading is called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And it's about time management, and really just time management. All it is just life energy management, like how you allocate your life energy in such a way that is in alignment with your vision and with your goals. And yesterday I was reading something essentially about how, and this is like a habit that I've just frickin' found myself continually making excuses for and just like exceptionitis for. And I read something yesterday wherein Tracy says, aka Brian Tracy says, never, ever, ever compromise on any task that is not the most critical and the most important. Do the one and only most critical and important thing per day. The first thing when you get into the office, like the first thing that you do should be allocated and should be deliberately focused on the most critical and most important thing. And there's always those freaking, emails that seem urgent and that are like, somewhat important, right? Like, I'm guessing there's a lot of things that you do that, you can argue to yourself and rationalize to yourself that, oh my God, no, this is important, right? So for me yesterday, it was I had a contract sent to me last evening when I left the office, okay? And it was for transcribing my audio podcasts and like doing the show notes, okay? Not transcribing, but doing the show note summaries for my podcasts, okay? And I literally got the email as I was getting in my car, leaving the office. And I don't know about you, I've just never found a good solution for signing documents on a mobile phone. Like, it's just a pain in the freaking ass. I even signed up and got the DocuSign app, which had like 5-star reviews, and of course I get some freaking errors and like saying, oh, you have a free account, sorry, you can't use this. I'm like, bullshit. Like, I don't want to, like, I was just so frustrated. I was trying to do it on my phone, and I'm like, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow when I'm at my computer, because it takes like, I don't know, it takes like maybe a minute to do, like up to a minute, maybe 2 minutes to open the file, download it, get your signature, save it, go through all the prompts that Adobe Acrobat, painstakingly and painfully puts you through, like, oh, do you want to save read-only copy, secure, all of that bull crap that they put you through, Creative Cloud, all that stuff. Anyways, it takes like a minute to do, and I can do it on my computer, fairly efficiently. Not efficiently enough as you would think in this day and age, okay? So anyway, the next day, okay, which is yesterday, I get to the office, and my goal is to focus on and work on my most important task, which is a very top secret project, at least at this time, that I've been working on for the past 6 months, and it's going to be the end-all be-all program for helping you create and develop and attain a 6-figure income by writing one thing per month by hand, right? So that's the most important thing that my time needs to be allocated towards. So as I was about to start, and it's a pain in the ass to do it. I'm writing the entire message for this program, and it's taken me like 3.5 months to do. It took me like a good 2 months, honestly, even before that, to even convince myself to even get started. And I was doing like a lot of neuro imprinting of other messages for, high-end products, right? And so anyway, yesterday, like my one and only, my focus, my task was to focus on writing the messaging and the whole story and the whole clear messaging for my high ticket product. Okay. Now, as I was about to start, this thing creeped into my mind. It was, oh shit, like I really need to sign that document and send her the email. It'll take 1 minute, and then that way she can get started and finish in time for, the first test of this show notes concept that I'm going to be emailing out tomorrow. So the old me, I've conditioned myself to do all of this bullshit tasks, all of these tasks like what I've just described. And they are important, but they're not dead critical, right? They're important, and they're also, here's the trap, is they're also kind of urgent, I want to get that to her ASAP. And the old me would have made it an exception, made an excuse, and said, you know what, I'll just knock this out because it's only a minute. And then I would have gotten sucked into emails. And then I would have done other, somewhat important and urgent things. And, for instance, I still have to pay the ticket that I got while, I was recording one of these podcasts. So you can view that previous episode of I got a ticket for wrapping my license plate in carbon fiber and lime green letters, which is awesome. I still need to pay that ticket, but I've got a month to pay it. So I almost got tempted to just knock that out, and all of these micro tasks. And I'll tell you that the surest and fastest and slowest at the same time, paradoxically, path to hell and path to misery is to make exceptions and to micro task yourself to death. And that is the thing that I have been unconsciously, I think, struggling with for some time. I always make exceptions and I'll just knock out that email. It's really quick. And, I'll do these 5 other things. It's really quick because it's really quick to do things in the digital age. And then you're just sucked into it because the time investment is so little. But that's the key, is what I did yesterday. I was like, no, fuck it. I am not doing anything. I am only doing my most critical task, my one and only most important thing, which is writing the message for my game changer, end all be all program that is going to transform lives and be the most badass thing. I'm going to be dropping a nuclear bomb on the internet and creating a message that really transforms and changes the lives of so many people. I'm going to help people essentially, I've probably talked about it before, but I'm going to essentially give people the ultimate simple template and tools and model and strategy for writing their way to freedom, meaning writing one thing a month and making over $10,000 per month. And that is the only thing I should be focused on. But I habitually, through exceptionitis, have conditioned myself to just make all these little micro exceptions. And that is the surest path to downfall, to death of productivity and death and not ever reaching your goals. And I changed that up yesterday. And I did so because I was inspired by what I read with Brian Tracy. He said, literally eat the ugliest toad first thing in the morning. Do the biggest, hardest, worst task ever. All of the other things, all of these seemingly urgent things, just throw by the wayside. Don't do. And this essentially is something that I want to encourage you to do is, really when you get to the office or when you get to work, do one thing, okay? Always, 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 for fulfillment purposes, like I've said, is do your AKD, do your analog knowledge development, whether that be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or at most an hour. Do it, okay? That grows the mind and gets the juices going for the rest of the day. Second, do the ugliest, most important, critical thing, okay? Screw all of the urgent stuff. Screw all of the semi-important stuff. Just do the one critical thing and screw everything else. Don't do it. And here's what happens inevitably is the critical thing, I worked on from maybe about 11 a.m. to 3 or 4 p.m. And I pretty much knocked it all out. And then what happened is I had this nice little time for a break. And during that break, I just knocked out that task of signing the document and then sending it over to my podcast show notes person. She's awesome. She might even be doing the show notes for this episode. Okay? But that's how it needs to be done. And if I didn't do that, right? Then what would end up happening is that effectively I'm hurting her and I'm hurting everyone, because if I don't do my most critical thing, then there's not going to be a need eventually in the long term, even for show notes or for a podcast, because I'm not doing the most critical thing, my zone of genius that I'm meant to do. So here's the framework that I want to introduce you to. I call it the CU framework, okay? And the CU framework is simply this. It is inspired by Stephen Covey. He has a similar type of framework, but the labeling he uses, I think, is less effective than what I use, okay? So imagine a four box quadrant, just 4 boxes, okay? On the left-hand side is a simple question. Is it critical? Yes or no? That's the C. C means critical, okay? And then on the top hand of the box is it urgent? And that's what the U is. It stands for urgent. So there's really 2 things, critical and urgent. Every day, every task, you need to ask yourself, okay, is this critical? And you need to ask critical because there's usually only one thing per day that is absolutely critical, or one thing that you're actively working on over the next 6 months or a year that is absolutely critical, okay? And critical, the word critical is way more important and a better term to use than the word important, because we can argue and rationalize ourselves to the point where we think everything could be argued to be important, okay? Now, that's the thing, is that you need to ask yourself, is it critical? What you'll find is that you'll often answer that question by saying, no, it's not critical, but it is important. And so, you know what you do? You say, screw it. I'm not going to focus on that thing, the first thing that I do every single day. That should not be the first thing you focus on. You should only focus on the one and most critical thing to do that day. So is it critical? Yes or no? If it is, yes, then that should be your focus, okay? And then if there are multiple critical things, let's say there's 2 critical things, then the question is it urgent? And what you want to do is you want to focus on the most critical and urgent task of the day, the CU, okay? So that's the CU framework. Just ask yourself, is it critical? You'll find that 96% of the time, the answer to that question will be no. And so you can just put it in the backlog and let it simmer in the background until 3 or 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, whenever you get around to it. So that is the CU framework. Ask yourself, is it critical? And is it urgent? And that's it. Just do the critical and urgent things during the day. That should be your only focus. All right. Anyway, hope this helped. Hope this inspired you to only do the critical thing and say no and delete everything else. All right. Peace and love. And maybe one day I'll actually pay my freaking ticket. And that is it. Anyway, always remember to stay crispy, my friend.